Hello and welcome to the Swim Brief. I'm doing a new thing. I'm introducing myself and saying I'm Chris DeSantis. I am joined by the former volunteer swim coach at Georgia Tech,
Yes.
Peter Verhoef. Peter, how
Hey,
are you?
I'm great, man. Thanks for having me, and thanks for bringing that up. I was thinking about that earlier today. I was like, man, that was a lot of fun. That year or so that I shared the deck with you at Georgia Tech, and who would have knows it led all the way to this years later.
That's right. That's right.
No, that's pretty cool. So yeah, thanks for having me. I told you earlier, this is my first podcast experience, so I'm super excited. And yeah, if I do something silly like rub the microphone the wrong way or breathe too loudly into it, just tell me, and I've noticed now I gotta be good at those things. So just let me know what I need to do, and I'm all ears.
I'll keep it to myself and just let you embarrass yourself. That's the key. That's good hosting right there.
Okay, got it. Okay.
All jokes aside, you have been up to quite a bit in the intervening 10 years, and we're going to talk about what you're doing now. But I just want to sort of race through a little bit of bio so people understand who you are. In your own swimming career, you competed at an extremely high level. You were an All-American, University of Georgia.
Yep.
You were finalist at Olympic trials. You represented America abroad. You were on a world championship team, I believe, in 2007.
Two World University Game teams.
Oh, okay, yeah. 2 World University Game teams. And you finished that up. And I met you. You were pretty recent from your own competitive career.
Right.
At what point did you decide? Because I feel like when we met, I don't know that you were sure you even wanted to go into a career of coaching.
Yeah, I mean, I'd finished up 2008, finished up trials at the University of Georgia. I had this job lined up in Atlanta. I said, hey, if I make the Olympic team, great, I'll go do that. I need something to do anyway. So I got this job, and it was an awesome job. It was a small company, it was a consulting company. And, I considered going into coaching before I got that job. And I said, I really want to coach. And, Jack Bowerly at Georgia, in all his infinite wisdom, said, yeah, no problem. I got a job for you. I said, great, sign me up. So, coaching job, what's it going to be? What university are you going to send me to? And he goes, Chris Davis down the road at Swim Atlanta needs a 10 and under coach for $12,000 a year. And I was like, is that are you for real? Like, I'm like interviewing with this company to be a consultant. You want me to do that? And he was like, yeah, it'd be great for you. It'd be a great start. Didn't say anything else. I just kind of went, all right. I walked away. I was like, you know what? I'll try the consulting thing. And he goes, you're right. You can always come back to coaching. I was like, all right, I'll do that. So, I started the consulting gig, and it was awesome. I had a great job, had a great company. People took care of me really well. I got to travel a lot. But I found that I really missed being in the pool deck. And I remember coming back and thinking, I don't know, what can I do to kind of get around the pool? And I reached out to Courtney at Georgia Tech and just said, hey, I'm here on the weekends and I just need something to do. Can I come down and just hang out on a Saturday morning? One of the awesome parts about Courtney, and I'm going to plug Georgia Tech because I think Courtney does a great job and it's a great school, but and being a Georgia guy, it's hard to say that, but she did such a good job.
Big man, Peter.
But every time you look at what she's doing now, I mean, she has an incredible staff around her. I mean, she is always putting just really, really good swimming minds on her pool deck and letting them just dig in with the kids. And I don't know why she thought it would be a good idea, but she came in within a couple of weeks. She was like, yeah, you want to run a practice or run this? And I'm like sitting over there thinking it's the best thing in the world. And that experience probably solidified in the back of my mind that I really wanted to be on the pool deck. Like, this is where I belong. This is where I feel like I'm making an impact. And I didn't feel the same way when I was at my job. And so I was all week, I was looking forward to Saturday morning at 6 a.m. Like I would fly home from my consulting gig and like, oh, can I get to a Friday morning practice? And, I'd walk in there and everybody's like rubbing their eyes and like, half asleep. And I'm like, this is great. So that kind of solidified in my back of my mind, I want to be a coach. And so I started looking at jobs, actually interviewed and reached out to a couple of different universities thinking, obviously college coaching, that's where I want to be.
Sure.
That's where all the good stuff is happening. And, I got shot down a couple times. I got interviewed and shot down a couple times. And then David Marsh called me at SwimAc, and he was running the pro group. He just started this pro group, this elite group with at a club, and said, hey, I know you're looking for a job. I can't promise you much money, but if you want to do this in 2 years, I'll help you. If you want to find a college job, you'll be coaching guys that are faster than college swimmers. So you got that on your resume. So you know what? I'll give it a shot. So, I think I took I think I added it up once. It was like a 85% pay cut to go up there and do that. And it was,
Oh, God.
I got to say right now, I'm going to plug my wife for a second. We had met and were dating at the time.
Right. You met her in Atlanta, right?
Met her in Atlanta. And then she stayed with me while I left Atlanta, went to Charlotte. We were still dating, dated long distance while I became super poor as a swim coach.
Oh, she stayed in Atlanta for that. I don't think
stayed
I
in
remember
Atlanta.
this part of the story.
Yeah. She stayed in Atlanta. She had a job and she goes, yeah, Bozo, I'm not moving with you without a ring. Sorry.
Right. Thank God.
And rightfully so.
Yeah.
You know, so I did the year apart, and then some changes happened at her company. She started looking for a new job. And, you know, at that point we got engaged and she came to Charlotte. And so I was there about 9 years. I did a couple of years with Team Elite specifically, and was just the pro coach. And the cool part about that job was I walked on, and my first day on the job, David Marsh goes, all right, your job, you got to help me stay organized with these pro guys, but your most important role is to make sure the rest of the club gets a benefit from having these elite guys here.
Yeah.
All right. Sounds good. He said that was day one. He's like, that's your job, is to make sure that the rest of this club gets a positive impact because these elite guys are here. Because if they don't get that, then this isn't going to work.
Right.
All right. So I went to every staff meeting. I would show up on pool decks. I would go to age group swim meets just because that was my job, right? I'm going to coach these pro guys and show up and help David organize the practices and the travel and all that kind of stuff and be kind of team manager. And then at the same time, I would take whatever we were doing. Now he would come up with these crazy drills or practices, and I would show up on deck. And it was really a great staff. You had Pam Swander, and you had Chris Webb was coaching up north, and you have Russ down south. And it was this awesome staff. So I would come in and be like, hey, David was doing this. We want to, let's put it in your practice real quick. And we would teach the kids something and got to know them. And that's when like Kathleen Baker was starting, and Alyssa Marsh was there, Erica Brown, were all coming through at that point. And so it was really cool to kind of be the guy trying to translate this elite level swimming into age group swimming. And that kind of got me hooked on kind of how important the developmental side of our sport is. And, you know, so a couple years into that, we finished up in 2012 and we had this amazing Olympic trials, right? We had 18 pro guys there. We had 18 age group kids from SwimMax. We had this like 30 person group at trials. And we were rolling best times everywhere. There was a couple nights at that meet where we had 10 swims in a final session. So either finals or semifinal swims. And as coaches, you're running around with your head cut off because, like, dude, those are big swims. And
there's a lot of work
trying
that
to
goes
manage.
in.
Yeah. And so we're like, it was crazy. It was so cool. The greatest experience. We came back off of that, and David was like, well, you know, all these pro guys are going to disappear for a little while. Like, we're not going to have this thing up and running for a year. Like, and I'm thinking, okay, I've been like asking around for jobs and I still can't find a college job. And right about that time, Kristen had gotten a job in Charlotte. So our marriage counseling was centered around, hey, I'm going to go get a job at like Louisville or Tennessee. And she's like, I just got a job here. Now you have to stay. So that was like pretty pivotal in our personal lives. And I said, okay, you know what? I went back, and right then Jeff Dugdale had he was building a new pool at Queens, and his assistant coach left. And I said, well, why don't I do this? Why don't I be the assistant coach at Queens? If you'll have me, I'll apply. And then I can still help with the elite guys on the side, and they're all going to be in the same pool, and this will be great. And so I kind of did this hybrid of, you know, coaching college for 2 years at Division II. And that was super cool because we won a national championship like 2 years later at Queens. Right. So we're NCAA champions, which was unbelievable. That group of guys that came in, credit Jeff with his vision, but he had these guys coming in, Ben Taylor and Nick Erickson, who's coaching there now. I mean, Hayden Kosader, these guys were nothing to speak of. I mean, we're talking like 148, 200 freestylers yards, you know, coming in, and they were leaving 135, 136. You know, Matt Joseph swam for us for that year. And so,
and then transferred to Cal eventually.
Yes. I mean, he was, and that was a really good pathway for him. He was at a point where he needed that experience to help him get ready for what he wanted to do internationally. And that helped him. And it was really cool to see that whole thing play out. So yeah, I did 2 years of college there. And then at that point, you know, we were having a baby. And so there were some changes at SwimMac. The senior coaches were moving around, and David said, hey, do you want to be our senior coach again? And I was like, well, I looked at the hours and was like, you know, believe it or not, the age group side is going to give me a little more flexibility to be at home. And, you know, college, you're coaching 2 to 3 workouts a day. You're there, you know, every single morning you had a morning practice. I was there, you know, 2 practices every single day. Whereas the age group side was like, look, I got a couple mornings, but I can come home after that. I can be around the family. I can take care of stuff. And then, you know, go back and be there in the evenings. And so I thought that was a better option for me at the time from a family perspective. And it gave me a chance to get back into, they let me into the administrative side of SWIMAC as well, right? So my role wasn't only coaching, but it was starting to work on the back end of the club, setting up dues and structures and, personnel and just how we were managing things and fundraising. And I learned a ton in that next year. And we had some struggles at SWIMAC about that time. And, David was getting that pro group ready for 2016. So that was the Ryan Lochte, Tyler Clary, Ariana Vanderpool Wallace. You had Katie Miley, Kathleen, Jimmy Fegan was there, Cullen. So we had this like star-studded pro group that was now in Charlotte. It was very different from the first one. Right. But still I was kind of involved with them. Bob Groseth was helping us out. Anthony Irvin came in for the last like six, probably 8 to 12 weeks or so before trial. So, at one point, David was like, yeah, I need you to just run the sprint practices like twice a week. So I'm going up there and I'm like walking to the door with like the world's best sprint group and like, walking out of my SWIMAC office, like trying to hustle over to kind of get the sprint practice organized. And,
you got Anthony Irvin just going like, hey, help me sharpen up for this Olympics where I'm going to try to win a gold medal 16 years after my first one.
Yeah, total aside. I mean, he was, so what would happen is I would write a plan. I had a big plan, all right, week to week, we're going to do this. I would walk in and he would be there and I'd say, all right, Anthony, here's what we're going to do. I'd show him on paper. Here's the practice. He'd look at it and he'd go, yeah, I got this today. We're good. All right, great. He'd get up and just crush it. Right.
Yeah.
And then there would be days he'd look at it and be like, yeah, not feeling this one today. This is going to be something I need to do on a different day. I'm going to do this and then we'll try this again tomorrow. All right, cool. Yeah. And then there were days he'd come in and he would say, yeah, I need to go fast today. I'm going to warm up and we're going to do this. And I'm going to go really fast. I'm going to leave. Like, all right. So I watched him do he stretched for like 20 minutes, threw down like a 42 flat 100-yard freestyle in a brief and then walked out the door and was done. I was like, well, that's, we'll take it. That's
Can't
what he
argue
did.
with the results, right?
No. And he was so dialed in, but he was so good. It wasn't like he was like this, he didn't have this agenda. He didn't have this kind of like, you have to prove yourself as a coach. He was like, no, you show me the plan and I'll take what I know that I need for myself and I'll tweak it into what I need. And then he was so good at taking a workout and making it what he needed. And it was this really interesting back and forth we had about how to set him up. And it was pretty fun. It was a lot of fun to kind of work through. I learned a ton. I learned way more from him than he did from me. And of course, David is overseeing the whole thing. David's over there, really directing everything and digging in on the finer points. But it was like, I was just kind of organizing a workout. Here you go. It was David was coaching it. It was just my help there. And so that was a really cool experience. And then David moved on from SWIMAC. Terry came in. I was now a senior coach. We were trying to find our new kind of identity at SWIMAC, really working through that process. And that gave me really, really good understanding of what makes a club successful and how to sustain that, without, the David Marsh factor that was there. And, how do we recreate some of that success and what he was doing? And so we, that 3 years later, I had a friend of mine called and said, hey, this Bolles job's open. I think you should apply. And I like, all right, I haven't even applied for another job since I got there. And so I was like, you know what? I haven't applied. I'll give this a shot. I have no idea what this is even about. In my mind, I'm like, it's a coaching job, right? It's a club. Well, I got to a second round of interviews and then they brought me down and I realized how big this job really was. Like you're part of the school, and then the key moment was realizing that my kids are going to go to school where I am. And I can be, as a coach, like if I go anywhere else, they decide to do baseball. Like I'm not going to see that. I'm coach from 3 to 6, I'm never going to be a part of that. But now, I'll tell you right now, I have a kid in first grade and a kid in pre-K. I go eat lunch with pre-K most days. So I'll finish this up. I'll go grab my lunch. I'll go sit in the playground with the pre-K class and hang out with my son and meet his friends. And it is awesome. So it is such a cool experience. But yeah, I was probably longer than you wanted, but that's kind of the journey that got me to right here. Sorry.
No, it's all right. I need to be taking notes because there's so much stuff from what you just said I want to revisit. If I go all the way back to the beginning, I have something I want to highlight, and then I'm going to pay you a compliment. Maybe it's going to be 2 compliments, and then maybe I'll try to weave it into a question. But I think so many times, anybody who's listening to this who's been like in college coaching, you have a volunteer coach, and there's a whole spectrum of people you might get to be a volunteer coach on your team. And I've had basically on one end of the spectrum, somebody that you almost never see. And if they do come there, they sort of show up on the pool deck and they go, so what do you want me to do? you know? And then I would say you were on the whole other end of the spectrum, where it was like exactly anybody's listening to this, Peter described himself accurately, coming in on Saturday morning, fired up, like
Oh yeah.
ready to get after it. But it was just such a shot in the arm for everybody. I can remember at that time. And you later on, you're talking about my second compliment is later on, you're talking about, I hear this theme of how important stuff was with your family and your wife and your kids and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I will always be grateful that I got married. You remember this in September of a collegiate season, went on a honeymoon in October of a collegiate season. And quite naturally understood Courtney was not thrilled about this. Hey, I know we're getting the whole like power conference Division I season off. I'm just going to take a couple weeks off in the beginning. And she was like, and then I remember her mood changed because I said, what if I could get Peter to cover all my practices while I'm gone? And she was like, all right. Like her mood changed from like, oh, like to like, oh, that's actually be pretty good. It'd be pretty cool. And then you did. For an entire week. I don't remember whether it was my honeymoon or my wedding.
No, I vaguely remember that now. That was even more fun for me because I'm like, I told the guys at work that I can't travel this week. I got some doctor's appointments and stuff in town. I gotta be here. I can't go this week. I'm working remotely from wherever the client site was. And I was hightailing down to Georgia Tech. I was like, man, I'm gonna get on deck. This is gonna be great. The poor kids, they were probably like, what the heck?
You were just coming out of the bullpen throwing 101 miles an hour.
I was fired up.
And I thought it was interesting, that I'm listening to your whole story there, but that there was thoughtfulness from the very beginning that I'm in a relationship with a woman. This is going to be probably at some point in this process, you're not engaged yet, but you're like, I'm going to marry her. Do you know what I mean? And this is serious. I've got to get my life set up, and it has to be a part of every decision that I make. And I'm very attracted to those stories because it resonates with me as well. One thing where I'm getting to my question is, you said in there, your sort of marriage counseling. I think people think of counseling as something you do like, oh, we had a problem and then we went into counseling. But to me, sounds like this was almost like a proactive thing you were doing. Like, we're going to get married. Yeah. Let's get our stuff together to do that.
Yeah, we I mean, just open and on. I mean, like, our faith is pretty important to us and our family. We weren't that way when we got together, when we started dating, and we had just kind of happened to chance into a church in Smyrna, Georgia that was kind of contemporary and really resonated with both of us. And it started this kind of journey of faith that kind of got interwoven with my swimming career, or coaching career. And just to kind of like, so, here we are, we're you're kind of discovering this faith-based journey together in Atlanta. And, I go to Charlotte. Well, David is a Christian, was a huge influence on me in that way. I mean, we talked openly about it. We had company, he would send me sermons or podcasts or whatever. And, we would kind of reflect back on that. And then at the time, Davis Tarwater had come into that pro group in Charlotte, and we were close competitors in college. And he had missed the Olympic team, taken some time off, gone to Tennessee. Matt Credits had kind of revived his career a little bit. And he said, hey, I'm going to Oxford to get this degree. And he'd gone to Oxford, and by his account, I'll say he kind of let himself go. So then he got this bug to come back and swim. So he shows up significantly overweight and out of shape. And it's like, yeah, I'm going to be this Olympian. We're like, we've got 2 years, buddy. All right, let's go. And then, this is the same time I started in Charlotte. So David's like, we were trying to find places to live, and this family put the two of us up for the first 3 months. And David wasn't happy about it. He didn't want me living with the guys on the team.
Sure.
And this really nice family named the Adams, they were part of SwimAc. They lived in, they had this basement room. It was actually really funny. They had a bedroom, and then it was like this giant closet. It was like a closet the size of a bedroom. There's no windows. The only door was like through my room. That was where Davis lived. So Davis lived in my closet for like 3 months while we were just, now this, keep in mind, this is a guy with I've graduated from Georgia. I've had a 6-figure job that I just, walked away from. I've got a girlfriend that I would like to marry back in another city. Davis is sitting in my closet with an Oxford degree, graduate degree, and a poli-sci degree from Michigan. As an NCAA All-American and World Championship team member. And the two of us are sitting in, a basement in Charlotte going, you know what, we're going to make our dream work.
Yeah, this is where it starts.
Yeah.
Right.
And, to kind of bring it back to the faith, I mean, Davis was a devout Christian, his family was, and he was eager to, he kind of saw it in me and where I was. He's like, I'm going to teach you more about this too. So we were going to church services together. We were talking about it together. We really grew. He helped me grow a ton in that area and what we were, talking about and doing at the time. And it all kind of kept growing and coming together as we were going through that experience. And so that by the time I got, he got engaged and we said, oh, well, clearly we need to do Christian family counseling before we get married. That's what you need to do, and our church was telling us. So we had signed up for this counseling. And I remember we literally got in the car to drive to our first session. And that's when the first knockout, drag out argument over whose career we were going to follow happened. So we stormed into this lady's office.
Now I'm on the edge of my seat. Now I want to hear.
This is it's taking me back now, but I mean, we walked into the first marriage counseling session of pre-marital counseling of, here's the script, right? This lady's sitting there like, okay, we have 4 sessions and we're going to go through these topics. And we're going to talk about money. And we're talking about family. And we're talking about this. And we're like, and, she can see the two of us just sitting on either end of the couch. And, she's like, well, is there anything we need to know? And it just, the two of us just went out. And her eyes got about this big about 10 minutes into this meeting. And, we spent, Kristen's crying, I'm yelling, we're, back and forth. And so she's like, well, it's so good that you're here and we're going to work through this. So we ended up doing 6 sessions of counseling.
Good.
And I can't remember back to saying, hey, the counseling fixed anything, but it started a foundation for, this is how we're going to work through this, right? We're going to have these conversations. We're going to open this up and both of us have to kind of come at this thing and work through it together. And I have to be really honest that being a coach's wife is really hard. It's really hard. I don't know.
Yeah. Just ask my wife. Seriously. Ask any coach's wife.
All praise to, our wives out there doing this. And it takes a special person to be willing to give up so much of, there's different aspect to it, right? Our time, if we don't manage our time well, swimming can consume every minute of every day.
Sure.
And that's not even to be good. That's just to run a club, right? You've got to be really good and efficient and delegate things. And then there's the emotional energy that it takes. This is better than, I can come in here and write a great practice and everything, but that one kid that, they really struggle with something and maybe they get out, it's just something little, they walk off like, okay, maybe I'm never going to be good today. And they stumble out of practice and it's stuck in your head like the rest of the night. Or, you're swimmer, you're trying to get ready to get for the big meet and they're just, 2 weeks out and they look terrible. You go home and you're just sitting there like, at dinner table, like staring at the ceiling, like, well, maybe if I had them do some pins and paddles tomorrow and they do this and then that, like that emotional pull that it has, learning to kind of like, learning to work through that as an adult and kind of give myself the skills to separate out and say, okay, when I'm home, I've got to apply that same energy at home.
Right.
But yeah, all those things kind of come together and it was, I'm so fortunate to have my wife and she's not a swimmer. She never was, has done a good job of kind of getting herself familiar with it, but also at the same time has drawn a line of like, I'm not a coach. I'm not going to get into this. Well, like, you're not going to be like the coach with the wife helping on the side. Like, no, you're on your own with swimming. Like,
I'm not baking cookies for the team.
Yeah. Nope. None of that. She'll have the keys over, she'll do that kind of stuff, but it's not like, it's, she's not going to be that person. She's like, even to the point where it was time for Calvin to get into, my oldest is 7. He's like, hey, we got to get some learn to swim going. She goes, look, you're in charge of swimming. That's you. So you either sign him up or you take him to the lessons, whatever you're going to do. I'll do baseball, I'll do basketball. I'm not doing swimming. That's you.
Yeah.
And so I'm the one kind of organizing his swimming experience. And she obviously does the driving and a lot of the other things. And she still works full time. So she's as busy as anybody. And we've gotten a lot better and kind of go with the theme you're talking about, right? We've gotten so much better in the last probably 5 years as coaches in our industry of kind of recognizing that we can be a lot better coaches if we can be a lot better people and a lot better families. And there's trade-offs to everything. You have to be willing to give some things up here and there, and you've got to be willing to maybe But I think the old model was like, if you're going to be good, you got to be good now, and you got to do all these things and just work your butt off. And there were times in my career, I mean, those years in Charlotte, I mean, there was a lot of 80-hour work weeks,
I know.
to try to do it. And on the college side, what that felt like.
Yeah, well, I mean, I like you brought up Courtney earlier, and I worked at Georgia Tech when Courtney had her first child. She had her first child a couple of years before I did. Our kids are basically the same age. I have an 8-year-old and I have a 3.5-year-old.
Yep.
So we're just right around the same. But I saw firsthand at that time how unprepared like Georgia Tech was for a head coach, female head coach, to have a child. Like they were just like, they had nothing. There was no infrastructure. Nobody had thought about it, like that this could happen even.
Right.
And the way that I was working at that time and viewing that with Courtney, I thought like, well, I want to have kids. I would like to be involved in my kids' life. I would like them to see me, and I can't do it here. I don't think I ever said that to Courtney. But I just thought like the way I'm doing this is just not compatible. And that set me on my own path. That's one of the reasons I went over to Denmark, because I thought, oh, well, Denmark, has 12-month parental leave for dads, which I did not get. So turns out there's some technicalities in there. But anyway, I thought, oh, it'll be better over there. I thought like I could pull it off. And ever since, that's why I get curious about this too, because my wife works full time. She's got a great career. She's supporting us really with what she's doing, and I'm trying to fit this thing I have a passion for, that I can also earn some money for doing into that, and also be a good father, and have something going on in my life that's not work or my wife or my kids.
Right. Well, and that's even harder. Right. And some of it's seasons of life, right? Where the age our kids are at. I mean, they're busy. They're not at that point where they're kind of out the door with their friends for a couple hours, and you have that, hour to kind of sit by yourself or whatnot. You're kind of full. You're still fully engaged with them. You might not be in diapers, but you're still kind of working. They can't eat unless you put something in front of them. That's the day I'm waiting for. Like, can you guys like fix a sandwich on your own? Seriously, like, can't be that hard.
I'm working so hard to get my 8-year-old to make herself breakfast, and we're just like this right now. So I'm like, you can spread peanut butter on bread. I've seen you do it. I know you can do it.
Yes, exactly. And I think, and as you're talking and tell me, you probably talked to more people and around the swimming world about this than maybe I have. I've been kind of stuck in my bubble here, but, it really comes down to, as a coach, you have to be willing to let other people in, whether it's your wife or your close family members or your assistant coaches or people in your community or other, you have to be willing to bring those people up to a level of, partnership with you, to do that. I mean, I've got to be willing for, Kristen to call a lot of the shots as my wife and say, hey, you've, and I'm fine with that. I mean, she does a great job. She's incredibly competent and keeps our family 100% keeps our family running in clean clothes and financially stable and all the other things that she does. She does all of it. But at the same time, like, I've got to get the coaches around me to a point where, and that's probably been one of the best things I've done since I got here. I'm totally comfortable walking off the pool deck. I have no issue with, between the kids in the water, the culture we have, and the coaches on deck. I know that if I can't be there, it's okay. Everything's going to happen. I don't even have to give instruction.
The world will not end if Peter Verhoef is not on the pool deck.
Right. And I was fortunate that David was a little bit like that. I kind of saw that in him, and Jack Bauer was like that at Georgia. I mean, they were like, no, we are not the secret sauce. Like, yes, our energy is important. Yes, our vision is super important. Yes, our ideas and our things are unique because of who we are and what we bring to the table. But I've got to be able to take care of myself. I got to be able to take care of my family. And when that happens and you kind of working with everybody on that front, you're going to get days and weeks that just kind of don't work, right? There's just those hard moments, and you got to be able to work through that. But I think, like you said, like you're saying it now, like you have to be a partner with your wife, and you got to, like, if you're going to do this, everybody's got to be on the same page.
It takes a village to raise children. Absolutely. Yeah. You need that village. Okay. I want to pivot. We've been talking about life and swimming. I want to pivot to swimming specifically, because before we started recording, you told me you would reveal the secret to your success at Bolles. And that's why everybody's listening to this podcast. So I'm going to actually title it "The Secret to Bolles' Success. Listen to find out."
Perfect. And you'll find out very quickly that it's there's not one thing here. I mean, that's
but seriously, I think you guys just your boys just won juniors. Swam says you're the high school team of the year.
Yeah, we got a Swammy.
You got a Swammy?
A Swammy. That was a highlight. That was cool.
How's that feel?
Yeah, and this is I'm not a celebrating guy, right? I'm the guy that's just like, hey, what's the next thing? So I've got to stop. And the kids here have even told me
I'm gonna force you to do it right now.
Okay? Right. Like, you've got to celebrate this. Like, we had a great year, girls and guys both. The guys were just a different place in terms of who they have and what they're able to do on a national level. So that's great. But our girls broke 3 school records this year. I mean, breaking a school record at Bolles is not like, that's no slouch, right? You're moving pretty fast to do that. And those our record boards, it can hold up in most colleges. So, that was pretty.
I would add, I'm the announcer for the Eastern Interscholastic Swim Meet, which Bolles hasn't been to, I think, for 20 plus years.
It's like right off. Somebody asked me about that. I need to get back engaged in that one.
But I witnessed 3 years ago. So it took until 2018. Somebody broke the 1991 meet record, Bolles 2:59.9 in the 400 freestyle relay. Like, just everybody listening that has any sense of history of how fast a sub 3 minute 400 freestyle relay was in 90s, like the early 90s. Insane.
Right. And probably mid-season too. Like, probably like
they probably didn't taper for that meet. Yeah.
Right. I mean, we and just to celebrate, some of the things, like the 3 team records on the girls side, those were awesome. We have a girl here from Thailand. It was a freestyle. She did an amazing job this year, and kind of, we had some really key relay legs on there, but our boys were, they really fired on all cylinders. I mean, we had 1-2 DQs through our little state series that kind of hurt us a little bit, just in terms of what we really wanted to do overall. But other than that, I mean, they were almost flawless, and just the stepping up and having 4 guys that you haven't really seen race at 50 free put down 20.0s or 20.1s on a relay. And we're sitting there, hey, we can get on 21.3, we're good. They're rattling some of our school records on the relay side, which is just, and you're having to use that 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th guy on the team in order to get those teams done. That's what made it really fun. The juniors thing was super cool, and that was all built on our relays. I mean, that was 2 A and a B relay. We had some great individual swims. We probably left a few things on the table. We had some kids that didn't swim. It's hard for us to do juniors right after that state series. So we had some guys from different events, just because it was things were really, it was mentally tough to kind of back up those events and do everything. But the relays were awesome, and they dug into that. And again, it takes 8 guys, and then you got to have 2 more sitting in the wings ready to go. But every day you're flipping back and forth between those other 2 guys. So really it's more like 10 to 12 guys that are kind of putting together those relays and those relay swims. So our success is there's not one thing we do in the water, because we're unique in that we have a lot of people that come to our school all over the world, even all over Florida, but come to Florida. We're not going to fit you're not going to look at some clubs and kind of look at and I know coaches hate it when we do this, because I know coaches feel like they can do everything. But you look at certain clubs and you go, wow, they really excel in the distance freestyle, or they kind of have these styles or these things that they do. They're an IM team. The short, the 100 of stroke they're really good at, or and really, we all know as coaches, right? It comes down to your personnel, and it comes down to the personalities that kind of come and go within the team and what they're able to do. But I mean, what we focus on as a group we have in front of us, and trying to make sure that everybody here has what they need to be successful in their strengths, right? So we get a distance swimmer, we got to have that component. We got we're still high school, so I'm not going to say 50 freestyle. We're not 100 freestyle is my limit. You can do a 50, that's great.
You got too much Georgia in you, Peter.
Well, there's that. And, I got to work with Anthony at 35 years old. I know what a 50 freestyle looks like. And believe me, none of you are there. You might think you are, but we're close. Yeah. And it takes too many years to get to that point to be able to do it at that level. So we really focus on fundamental stuff and trying to be a little bit of a jack of all trades. So really, when you say that, our success comes down to creating a culture around our coaches and our athletes where everybody's working to be their best, right? That's it. That's the secret sauce, right? Is trying to get everybody. And when I say everybody, I mean everybody. I mean the person that's, maybe they just started something 2 years ago. We have 107 kids on our high school team. There's
Holy smokes.
yeah, there's a ton of them. But you know what? Like the thing that our kids said about this year, I was talking to one of our seniors this year. He said, yeah, what was fun about this year is like, you could walk into the locker room and the kid that's going, winning 2 state titles is, going to Stanford is having a conversation with a kid that's, he's just trying to get a senior champ cut, and learn how to, kick underwater a little bit better. Right. So like we're all, there was no like, we have a status in terms of like what you do within the pool, right? There's practice groups that help you organize that. But I think being able to say, hey, we're all here to get better, and I'm going to hold you accountable to that. That means that allowed that 10th, that 11th, that 12th place guy at juniors to kind of be hey, I'm prepared to step up and make this team successful. Yeah. I think that was a lot of what we had going on. And our girls team just a little bit smaller this year. Again, for some reason, it's just kind of how it worked out. So we got a bigger class kind of coming through as a freshman and sophomore year. So I think that we're going to see that same trend as we kind of go through the next few years. I'm excited for that. That's going to be really fun. And then the other, we try to blend. I try to use the word "and," right? People want to say they want to work hard, but you want to, or you want to swim hard, but you want to have fun. Like you can do both, and doing both is what you're trying to do, right? So we can have fun and work hard. We can have fun and swim fast. Now, it doesn't have to mean that, everybody feels like, the only thing you're doing is swimming and you're super dialed in and you're giving up the rest of your life. I hate that mentality. I think that's really twisted to say, hey, we got to sacrifice a lot of stuff. No, you're choosing to do certain things to make you better. And you shouldn't have to choose between that and being a good friend or, having a social life. No, at some point when you get to certain levels in the sport, yeah, you're going to have to make some choices that maybe mean you don't get to do a late Friday night or whatever. You can't get around that. But, we have a lot of fun. Like, for example, one of the things this year, the kids made up their own game. They play this game called 9 Square. It's an extension of 6 Square, but you're not allowed to use your hands. So it's all like foot and chest. And like we have a dryland room, we have 9 squares taped down on the ground. And the whole team comes in before practice. And it doesn't matter, girls, guys, what level you're at. I mean, there's a handful that sit outside and they chat and they talk or whatever. They come in, they line up and they rotate through this game and they're playing and they're yelling at each other. I mean, 30 minutes before practice, they're playing this game. And it's that's the stuff that makes us good, and people are like, oh, how much yardage are you doing or what intensity? No, we play a game, we get everybody focused, and we're in the water for an hour and 45 minutes, and we go as hard as we can, as much as we can for an hour and 45 minutes. And then we let them go be themselves, right? We get them out the door and say, hey, go take care of your schoolwork, go take care of your social life, go do those things. So I think that's our success, right? It's having fun with being fast, and doesn't mean you avoid the work. It just means you let people be who they are, and you try to include everybody in that process, and it creates some really cool stuff. So I think that's probably not a very clear answer, but that's my best shot
answer
at it.
You got is good. One thing I'm curious about listening to that, and I think this is something too we think about here. Head coach here, Paul Donovan, he started, I think, just like 6 months after you started at Bolles, and one of the things we've talked a lot about is you take over a place that has a really strong tradition, and change is hard for everybody. Change is hard for you. Change is hard for other people. What was your approach to that when you took over? How did you think about what I'm going to change and what stuff? Because you have probably so many things that are working really well, right, that you don't necessarily really want to change. How did you approach that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, and I'm going to say, in hindsight, I probably could have done a lot better at it. I mean, that's one of those that you.
So tell us, so we can all learn, Peter.
Right. I mean, you don't change. I mean, I got handed. I mean, taking over Bolles is essentially being handed the keys to a Ferrari in the swim world, right? And they're like, yeah, don't crash it, have fun. So you're kind of like, all right, well, there's a lot going on, and you walk in the door, you're like, I got this, this is going to be awesome. We're going to be amazing. I'm going to clean this up and we're going to go. And the reality is it wasn't broken. There was still, Bolles was great. We were swimming well. And John, my predecessor, had done a good job, and the school was still really strong and all that kind of stuff. And so it was about, what can we do to be better? What are we going to do to be better? It's not about, hey, we got to fix something that's broken or change that. And it was like, what are we going to do to be better? How do we set up something that we're always just trying to be better? Doesn't matter if we reach the top or we start at the bottom. We're always just trying to be better. Let's just focus on that. So that was kind of my message when I walked in the door. And before I even started, I'd called Ian at Dynamo because he had just taken over Dynamo in the same, very similar position, right? He had this legendary club. They just come off this incredible Olympic trials, and under tragic circumstances, he becomes the next head coach there. And I said, what can you tell me? And his advice was, turn the dial slowly. You want to come in, you're going to just, crank everything to a 10 and go. He said, just turn it slowly. Just change is hard for everybody. Just slowly kind of move this way. And in retrospect, there were some areas I cranked the dial right away, and I probably shouldn't have.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that, if I could tell anybody working on that, take the time to get to know people, right? You're not going to get people to change or do something different. You need to have certain standards. You need to have some clarity, right? You need to have some really simple things to say, look, this is what I'm about. Right. And I still look for that, right? What can I walk in and say, okay, here's the non-negotiable things that we're just, these are kind of the
is that stuff like show up on
right,
time.
right. Like, hey, I expect you to be here. And if you're not going to be here, but you also got to be a little careful with that, right? So like, we do 8 practices a week, right? So let's say you come in, I'm like, you know what? We need 100% attendance, right? I want 100% attendance. Well, we're in high school. I'm sorry. If you're listening to this, you coach 18 and unders, 100% attendance is not, it's a great goal. It's not a realistic rule, right? You got to be really careful what you make a rule and an expectation or a goal. And what I'd say is, like, we would come in and it's like, look, if you're not going to be here, you have to communicate. That's the rule. Like, the rule is you have to tell me you're not here. And it's not because I need to like light you up about it. It's because if you're driving here at 5 a.m. and you don't show up, I need to know you're not in a ditch somewhere. And, I need to call your parents and figure out what's going on. Right. And so our rule is, like, you got to communicate.
Or if you have a problem that's preventing you from coming to practice, and I can help you solve it, like, tell me about it. So we don't just go weeks without you.
Right. We're working through this. Right. And it's not perfect. We, sometimes there are days where somebody misses and we don't get to them. But I mean, it's, I think that's a good example of like where you come in and like, hey, I want to we have to be here, right? We have to be present. Well, let's start by, like, you just got to communicate. And sure enough, kids would write, I have a lot of homework today. Okay, great. You take care of homework. I'll see you tomorrow. Well, the 3rd week in a row of having homework, it's like, all right, pause. Like, what's going on here? You still need to be at practice. Well, I have all this homework. Well, let's sit down with your advisor. Let's figure out what your study habits are. Let's figure out what your class load is. And because at the end of the day, you've got to be able to do both of these. You can't tell me that this, when it's convenient for you, academic takes the priority. And when you want to be here, then you got to be able to do both. So that was the beginning of a process to kind of talk with kids. But I would say to anybody, I mean, just take the time to get to know people. And it's really basic stuff. Where did you come from? Who are your parents? Who are your siblings? What do you like to do? What sports do you follow? What do you want to do when you get out of here? What's your favorite music? Like, just what, and it's hard for teenagers, especially as the older I get and the younger they get. It's, we don't have the same things in common, but
right.
I probably was more interested in what my standards and my vision was than I was in who that first group was when I walked in the door. And everybody gives you a grace period, right? The first 3 or 4 months, it was, he's awesome. He's going to be great. We're all going to be, we're going to listen to what he says. And then, then you start getting a season where maybe a couple of kids don't swim quite the way they wanted to. And then maybe, a couple new people come on the team or somebody really changes the way they view about the sport. And then all of a sudden there starts to be these hard conversations that come up. And that was kind of my first fall. I started here in January. The first, January to August were great. We had some kids doing really well. We were all kind of moving in the right direction. We're doing some really fun stuff. There were some things I was still really upset about. I want to change this. I want to change this. Dryland was a big component we were adding in, and the culture around that. And I was trying to make that better. And then, we got to the fall and some of the kids struggled a little bit, especially the seniors. And I think, I wish I would have been a little more intentional about getting to know them a little bit better and being more interested in their journey than mine. It turned out okay. I mean, I think we had some good experiences. We were successful in those years, swimming wise. I mean, we just could have had a better experience had I taken that time to get to know them a little bit better first. And so now we try to do that a little bit more. I try to get on a Zoom call with a kid before they get to school, if they're coming in high school, or, we do some beginning of the year, we go out to the beach here in Jacksonville, first or second week, we'll take the kids out to the beach and everybody hangs out on the beach for a day. And you really watch everybody kind of interact, and you just sit in a tent and talk to kids for a while. And it just sets up an environment where you guys can interact with each other, and you're not, so when you walk in the door, I can, we can talk about school, or we can talk about what's going on and checking in. So as you're taking over kind of a tradition like that, it's the key is, you've got your vision, you've got your ideas, you've got your things you had, which by the way, that was another hard part for me, is all of a sudden I realized I had to have my own coaching philosophy. I never had to have that. I mean, swim back has a curriculum. It's like structured for you. And you just follow the book, and all of a sudden they swim fast, it's like, boom, they're done. Before that, it was like, hey, whatever David says, this works. And I mean, clearly he knows what he's doing. So we're just gonna, I'm gonna take David and make him the best he can be. And so all of a sudden it was like, well, what do you believe in? And it was like, I don't know. So I really have had to, over the first couple of years, refine and simplify what my philosophy is. What do I want to see in the water, and what are the things I believe in, and what works and what doesn't. And it's little things, right? I believe in a lot of kick. I believe in IM training. I believe in a balance of teaching and working, right? Those things happen in swimming. And so I don't believe in just doing yardage to get to a yardage number, right? That's just not something I'm going to do. And it's we can get to 7 creative practice if we want to. And I'm going to sit there and just, hand you the paper and just watch you go back and forth, because there's no other time to talk. There's no other time to explain something. There's no reason to give behind what we're doing. And if you do that right, and you do the right energy systems, you'll get faster. But if all you're doing is following what the instruction is, then it's never becomes yours, and it never becomes you as a swimmer. And then you don't actually get interested in it, and you don't actually want to do it. You're just doing it because it's there. So I believe firmly in trying to empower the kid and trying to help them understand what they're doing and how to get better. I want them to challenge me. I want them to walk in and be like, Coach, I need to do this, or I need to do that, and we can have a conversation about it. So looking back on it, I mean, for a coach taking over a program with a lot of tradition, be respectful of that. Like, you gotta look around, and I walked in, and obviously Greg Troy is a huge influence here. Being a Georgia guy and then coaching for an Auburn coach is Greg wasn't exactly like the highest of my coaching fan list. But he was so instrumental in helping me the first couple of months I was here and before I took the job. And as we've been here, every time I get a chance to see him and talk to him, he's got incredible wisdom he shares about his time here and understanding what it is to make the team. And he has a lot of passion for Bolles still. So it's really great to get his perspective and be able to have that door and open it up and talk to him. So, respecting that past, but then also connect with the people that are here. I mean, they're the ones that are going to be the tradition, not you. So making them the priority. And then I think that allows you to kind of make those changes as you want to. I don't know, is there a specific you can think of like what that looks like?
You mean in terms of what?
Exactly. Like when you ask that question, like what does it look like to take over a program like that? And
I think I had no idea what I was gonna get. It's just asking a big open-ended question. See what I got on the other end. And I got plenty. I know we're at the halfway past the hour now. I don't know if you have a hard stop at this moment.
No, I got a few more minutes. We can
keep going a few more minutes. Then I have one more question to ask you. Actually, this one will be a very specific question. You're going to have to address a rumor I've heard. Okay. And that you're just looking so nervous for people who are just listening to the audio version. It's not like that. Don't worry. I heard that club wise, you guys have sort of moved on to long course season. The high school team obviously still has Florida high school state meet coming up. Your face is saying you've not.
No, ours is in November. Our high
is in November.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
we're gonna have to edit that out.
No, it's fine. So let me just give you the overview of a Bolles year, right? Yeah. So school starts in August. It's usually pretty early. So like August, that week of like August 10th is usually our first day of school, somewhere in there. So we can start practice as early as the last week of July as far as the high school season is concerned. Well, if you know the USA swimming schedule, that you're kind of finishing up all your stuff in July and August. So what we've kind of gotten to, and again, this has taken 3 years to kind of get this plan in place of how we kind of handle things, because we want to give people the breaks they need and the resets they need. But we kind of find we do as best we can to get everybody into a meet on the last week of July. Like, so we've got we've got nationals, futures. We've got a local meet here in Florida, and we've got like an area level meet that we can get every single senior swimmer to one place in July. And then everybody gets a week off, and then we'll start with our high school practices. And there's a lot of energy around that. Like a ton of come in, everybody's new to school, everybody's excited. The high school team is, dual meets are fun, all that kind of stuff. It's great. But we get this kind of 13 to 15 week season that gets us to right before Thanksgiving. That's when our state meet is, our state series. So you go districts, regional, state, 3 weeks in a row. So that's our kind of first short course window. And we try to put like a time trial around that state meet. So if you're not on the state team, you're getting a chance to race a little bit. And then we go to a meet in December. So we'll go to an invite, or we'll go to winter juniors. Maybe as we get closer to trials, we'll go to the long course national meet with some kids that need that. So we'll put a championship meet in December. And that kind of constitutes our short course season, right? That's our season, right? And it's super chaotic. It's really busy. We do have to kind of focus a lot more on our quality and our power, and just, it's just short. We don't get this time to kind of build way up and come way back down. You kind of have to you just have to get after it right away. And you're training a lot of speed, and just raw energy. Right. And then we're going to reset over Christmas. We have exams. This year we gave everybody like 5 days or 7 days off at Christmas time. That week of Christmas, we said, look, do not swim. Don't go to the pool. Wake up and know that you don't have to get wet today. And then the second week of the break, we said, hey, get active. Right. So if you're here, we got practices. We did singles. It was awesome. And if you're not here, you're traveling, whatever it is, you need to do some dry land, you do some exercise. If you get in the pool, great, but just be ready to go. So on January 2nd, we come back in, we can get started. So we came back in, and that's essentially the beginning of long course for us. So we're going to go January to July, kind of long course focus. Now we have an option for a short course meet in March. We'll go to our senior champ meet. Some kids are saying, hey, look, I didn't get a chance to swim my best events. Maybe I got sick, or maybe the meet didn't quite go the way I want to. I want to go there, but we generally do a short rest. So we'll do about 10 to 12 weeks of really hard work. And then we'll do like a week rest just for a meet in March, just kind of see where we are, kind of get suit up and be ready to go. And then the rest of the season is kind of focused on those June and July meets long course. And what happens is, that's your moving season. I mean that's when a kid is going to grow the most. So when they start in January and they go all the way to July, that's a 30-week season roughly. Your college season is 28 weeks. So that's when you get your body to actually adapt to that training, at that level. And there's shorter cycles within that. So don't, it's not like this.
Right.
But
no, but I'm hearing it. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you show up at the end of the summer, all of a sudden that kid that started at a sectional level, and now all of a sudden he's at futures. Well, he's going into that short course season coming off of a big long chunk of work and preparation and growth, when you spread it out like that, now all of a sudden they're ready for that short, fast high school season. So it's kind of like balancing the energy level of the seasons, and then also just logistically what makes sense for us, because it would be really hard for us to go, all right, we're going to go this championship season in November, then we're just going to like do some meets in December, and then we want everybody to train really hard through Christmas so that we can go to this meet in March. As well as anybody, swimming in January and February is the worst time of year, period. It's dark, it's cold, even here in Florida.
Even in North Florida, yes.
Yeah, even in North Florida, we're going to get 29 degrees on Saturday morning. We're all outside. So, I mean, it's chilly, right? It's not pleasant. Like, you're not doing like team meetings outside, like just, you can't. So, asking kids to be at their best during that time of the year that's a tough draw. I remember going back to college. I mean, you remember that you just kind of come back from Christmas and you're just trying to get to conference, right? You're just like, just trying to hold the pieces together to kind of get to that conference.
And you were in Athens, Georgia, and I was in Waterville, Maine. You can think of a more miserable place to be in January.
Exactly. And it's super hard in our sport, I think, to be successful in March. And the college season helps because you have the team around you. You have this kind of tradition and this team pattern that's kind of been in place for decades. But ours has really worked well for us the last couple of years to do it that way. And we still have a lot of kids that have international meets in April or May, or they want to go to that March championship meet, and they're going to swim lights out. They'll be great, but they've got to know it's going to feel a little different than it does in the fall. So yeah, we are essentially long course. I mean, we flipped the pool long course Friday to Monday, and our meets, we did a long course distance meet last weekend, and we got sectionals coming up long course in a week or so. And yeah, we're kind of digging into it. I love it because I watch everybody else kind of, trying to sharpen up for that last short course meet. And it's like, no, man, we're getting a step ahead. We're putting in work that's going to help us next year, and laying the foundation. And that we talk to the kids about that, and how important it is to culturally and work-wise to put our work in now, get our habits right, get our base in, do those longer events or those longer practices that you're not used to. Do those now, put that work in now, and it pays off for us when we turn around and we have that next season ready to go.
Yeah. So. Yeah. I mean, it's funny listening to it. It's a European kind of model, actually. So many, of course I have Denmark to work off of an example, but so many countries over there, it's basically your short course season is start in August, domestic, short course championships in November, international championship, whether it be a European short course or a world short course in December, and then move on from short course. That's exactly what they do. Right. And I think it definitely, I never thought about it in this way, but Denmark can be a crushingly depressing country in December and January. We had a January over there where, when I was working there, where literally the sun was out and shining for 2 hours in a whole month. In a whole month. And so
that's like there's a very real mental well-being component to and that's something, that's a whole nother podcast, and we certainly schedule that.
We have a whole nother left based on all the answers you've given.
Yeah. I mean, but we've tried so much to work in, just the mental well-being of the human into and that's a big reason why swimming is getting faster, is because we're starting to recognize what makes the human work better. And a lot of it's just that well-being. And there's little things like sunlight and, for high school kids, their school schedules and all these things that kind of go into it. And David was really, really good at it. David Marsh was so good at just understanding the human rhythm of what was going on and how to manipulate his season around it so that it matched up with the emotional tendencies of where the athletes were. And I think that for us, that's probably the biggest reason for us to say short course in December. It's and again, we'll give you the opportunities. We're not like excluding opportunities, but we're still trying to, the hardest part is selling people on the long-term vision, right? Like you might not want to, you might be able to swim as fast, you don't get to be your very best in March, even if you want to. You're going to be better down the road because of what we're doing. And you got to trust us and you got to believe in that. And usually it works out pretty well.
All right. Now you gave me one last question, because you brought up the Marsh thing again, and he's in the news. Right. So I got to actually ask you about this, because one of the things I'm really curious about, first off, I talked on another podcast. The part of the story that I really love is the fact that Chase Kreitler is getting some time off when his kid is coming. I think it resonates with a lot of what we've discussed here. But you worked with Marsh, and I've heard something, and I want to run it by you and see what you think. Of course, he's been incredibly successful as a coach. He has a number of high level skills that come with that. But one thing I've heard about it that in particular is really good is that he's really excellent at that sort of like short time period, get people ready for a big ass meet. That's my one swear word of the thing. Yeah. So what do you think about him coming basically at the end of a season with Cal and getting these kids ready for an NCAA championship?
It's a great way to ask a question, because he's really good at big meets. I'll put it like he's a championship coach. Like if you look at football, like the coaches that are championship coaches, like they know in the moment how to handle. And when I say championship meet for a swimmer, that's probably 6 weeks out of your meet, right? That window of time is when, you've really got to be dialed into technical components, energy components, emotional components, and the mental game, all that kind of stuff, right? So he's really good at that, but he's good at it because of what he sets up prior to that. And Cal's success there, he will be able to bring that to bear because he knows what Dave has done before that. And they would have similar philosophies or similar there's things they're doing back in September and October and November that David's going to be able to leverage and take that short window of time frame and create a lot of success out of. Because you're right, he has that skill set, but his understanding of what you need to do way before then, and going back to pro groups and pro athletes, like, all right, we're 2 years out of the Olympics. What do we need to do this? The next 6. And he was in all of his stuff was kind of general, but it made a ton of sense, right? To be like, all right, we're going to spend our first training cycle of season. We're going to spend 12 weeks working on our weaknesses, okay, and the next one is going to be leveraging our strengths, and the next one's going to be like, preparing. We're going to run a simulation of what we're going to do for trials in 2 years. That 6 weeks is going to mirror what we're going to do in 2 years. And then the next phase back was like, okay, now we're going back to our weaknesses. Now we're going back to our strengths. Now we're going back to, and then we get to the trials year. He's like, all right, now we're only doing our strengths. We're only doing this. And then we have 2 dry runs of that meet in our back pocket going. We know how the athletes react. We know how it feels, and everything becomes automatic. Right. So his success in those short windows comes from, the work they've done before. Now that's a generalization, and all generalizations stop at the general level, right? There's cases in point, and I look at Anthony Irvin or Carolyn Joyce, both of who showed up in Charlotte 6 to 8 weeks prior to Olympic trials, and we had really successful seasons with them. Kara was physically ready, but emotionally kind of out of sorts. Like she just wasn't. She didn't have the confidence she had before. She'd had a rough couple of races, a rough year of racing, and didn't know where she fit. And was kind of wrestling with this idea of being done with a sport and where she was. And that was a super cool journey to be a part of. And to let her watch some of that stuff go through David's guidance and bring out the physical preparation she had. And all we did was fine tune a couple little things. It wasn't like it was brand new. He just tweaked 5% and let that 5% shine. And that was what made her feel good. Right. And Anthony, same way. He comes in, he's got all the work done already. He's just fine tuning everything. But David's, all right, let's fix your start. Like that's something we can do in 6 weeks. And we happen to have this fancy starting block set up at Queens. They use that over and over and over again. So let's just dial into this. And then
getting into one of my topics, I wrote exactly about this. He had such a horrible start, and he got to like for an elite,
to this day, again, to sidebar into swim geek world, like, so I was watching that Olympic 2016. Our family had taken a trip. Kristen was pregnant with our second child. My family had organized this, my grandmother's like 80th birthday. We're going to go to Gatlinburg, Tennessee, to this mountain house and spend the weekend or whatever it was. And so I'm like glued to the TV for Olympics, right? So the rest of my family's out, like, playing in the woods or, cooking, whatever, having fun. I'm like down in the basement watching TV. And I remember I was watching the 50 free final by myself. Like nobody else was even there. I think somebody was like on the other side of the room or something like that. And, I'm standing up, I'm watching the TV, and, start goes off and he comes up this far behind.
Yeah. And you're like,
and I'm like, I was like, it's over. I'm screaming. He's got to go. He's got to go. I mean, I'm talking like the first 2 strokes, I'm screaming at the TV. He's won. He's just, we're going to do it. Yeah. Like I'm going nuts. Cause like, he wasn't that far behind. He was only this far behind. Exactly. And I was like, he's got it. Yeah. So I knew at that moment, because of the work they'd done at the start, when he came up there, it was like, dude, it's game over. And it was so cool to, sitting in a basement in a house in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and my family like looking down the stairs, like, is everything okay? Are you all right down there? They didn't, they were like, oh yeah, this guy coach, you just won. They're like, oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Like, like whatever. One of the coolest moments ever in swimming history. And like, I was a part of that, a little part of it, very little, but was still really cool. So yeah, I mean, I'm super excited to see what he does there. I mean, obviously that partnership between Dave and Dave go back a long time, and they share the same language. Like they coach out of the same book, as far as their language goes. I mean, there's very different things to both of them, I think, but there's when it comes to one of the things that they probably share the most, I think, and this is just my own personal opinion, is they're championship coaches. Like if you want somebody, they can beat a better team by being a better championship team. That's how they know how to do that. So if you're neck and neck with another team, they can out championship you. And there's a lot that goes in. There's a lot of stuff I've taken from them that I employed here. I mean, we're really good at championship meets, because that's what matters. And it takes purpose, it takes planning, it takes preparation ahead of time. You have to give up some things ahead of time. Like, we're not going to be that good at certain meets. And, we're going to focus on certain meets. We talk a lot about, the meet we did last week. I mean, I didn't even watch the competition pool. I stayed on the warm down pool, because all I did was tell the kids, like, I'm here to make sure you know how to warm up and warm down. That's what we're going to work on. And it's really cold outside, and I want to see that you can do what you need to do when it's not comfortable. And that's a championship skill that we're trying to learn in January for a meet in June. And that's the kind of stuff David does. So you might get that. And I mean, if you give him an athlete that's already done some of that stuff, or they're already prepared, I don't know that he's had a whole lot of scenarios where you have an athlete that's come to him in a short window of time that's just vastly underprepared. No coach really has, right? Like that just doesn't work in our sport. Like you have to do the work.
Yeah.
You know, there's not like some kind of like, you can take like, 8 months off and just show up with David. He's going to fix, like, he'll make your stroke pretty, but it's not going to make, you got to do the work ahead of time.
But I was even thinking in the scenario that you talked about, a couple scenarios where somebody else was coaching those athletes up until that 6 to 8 week window. But I think too, I mean, he's been on a lot of Olympic staffs. When you're on Olympic staff, you end up with swimmers that, you haven't been with for all the years work preceding up to it. And you've got 4 to 6 weeks, make sure that they perform at the best at the biggest speed
and
they'll ever swim at.
Right. And when you talk to him about those experiences, and it's been a while since I've had a conversation with him about it, but it would, when he was in London and Rio, we were kind of debriefing or whatever afterwards, he would reflect back on like very specific moments in the training camps and the coming up where changes or pivots happened. Right. He had Kathleen working on something and Olivia Smalley goes over there and, they happened to do something together that was really special. And all of a sudden after that, they both kind of moved this. And as a coach, he had to facilitate this. And it boils down to, you can have that athlete come in from somewhere else, but being really, really aware and being able to, one of his skill sets, being able to watch somebody and know kind of where they are physically and mentally and being able to kind of adjust to that as needed, right? It's not like you're walking in and go, okay, here's my taper plan and here's the yardages and everything we're going to do. And it's like, there's some of that in there, but there's also this kind of really, really good personal awareness of watching people and knowing, where are they emotionally, where is their energy going? How do I direct it in the right place and get it to the right point? And he can go back and, Katie Miley, and she was awesome because she was brilliant, on her own regard. She was a psychology major for Columbia, right? So she knows what's going on in her head. And rumor has it she had to tell David to back off before her final race. She was like, finally, I just, he kept trying to come over and he had that one word ready to go. Hey, I think you should. She's like, stop, I got it.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go. He was like, you got it. We're gonna let you go. You got it. And he had to stop in that moment. Those are the things he would come back and talk about. So it wasn't coming back and like, we had her do, these 100s this week, and the next week we did this in the yardage, and this week there was the intensity was here, pace was here. It's all these little conversations, little moments that kind of add up to how you get that person right where they need to be behind the block. And he's so good at that. So that team's they're going to get something special out of that season. I think it'll be really fun for them.
Yeah. Well, we'll be watching, be cheering from here. I'm excited to see what happens too.
Yeah.
Peter, thank you so much for coming on here in general. Thanks for being willing to go a little extra long as we started geeking out for the last 20 minutes. I really appreciate it. I hope the people listening appreciate it as well.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I'm glad they get to, I enjoyed it thoroughly. So it brightened my day and gave me a lot to think about. And let's put your head together. I'd love to do another talk sometime on just the mental well-being side of our swim. We touched so much on the family side, but I think from an athlete perspective,
that's half my job here.
I know that's the thing. Like
so let's get into it. Yeah.
I would love to. I got some resources here that we're using. I'd love to share that. And I think that's where we really start to have fun as coaches when you start to talk about those things and there's so much ground to cover. Yeah. So I'd be pumped to do that. So, all right, man.
Let's do it. Thank you.
Well, have a great day.
You too.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.